Hello, welcome back to me trying to explain everything we're doing in class today. So we're starting with finishing the coloring sheet with photosynthesis, and I want you to finish up only the photosynthesis side. You don't have to do the cellular respiration side yet. So if you haven't done the coloring sheet, then there's a link to it in the module, and you can print it and color it. Or you can, I don't know if you can do it online. If you would have to be kind of really good at figuring out how to use paint. But if you do it that way, then that's fine, and I will accept it if that's what you would prefer to do. So we're going to finish the coloring sheets, the photosynthesis side first. Then we are going to begin our discussion of cellular respiration, and you're going to continue to fill that in on your fill-in notes. So here we go. We talked about photosynthesis, where oxygen is created and sugar is created. And in cellular respiration, which happens in both plants and animals in the mitochondria, we use that energy in the form of ATP, and we give off water and carbon dioxide. So glucose and oxygen gives you water and carbon dioxide, which is what we breathe out. We breathe out moisture and carbon dioxide. We also give off water in our urine, and I guess in our poop too. So we give off water and carbon dioxide. So there's the equation right there for cellular respiration. And if you look carefully, then you can see that actually these things go on this side for photosynthesis, and these things go on this side for photosynthesis, and you add light in the middle. So it's actually kind of a reverse mirror image of the photosynthesis equation, taking out the light, because we don't use light. Let me hide that. Okay, here is a diagram of the mitochondria, which we learned about last semester when we were learning about cell organelles. And everyone always says the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. And that's because that's where we use ATP and get energy. So let's look at the parts of a mitochondria. Number 1 is the outer membrane. Number 2 is the inner membrane here. Number 3 is the interior part, kind of like the cavity kind of part of the mitochondria, and that is called the matrix. And then inner membrane space around here. So there's some space right there in between the inner membrane and the outer membrane. There's some space there. And then number 5, these wrinkly things are called the cristae. So words to know for cellular respiration. There are 2 words that you need to know for how our body creates energy, and also plants too. An aerobic use of energy needs oxygen. So it means in the presence of oxygen. So like if you're running, that's an aerobic activity. You're taking in oxygen as you run. So the energy that you're using needs oxygen to be able to be processed. In an anaerobic reaction or use of energy, it does not need oxygen, and there's no oxygen there. And an example of that is fermentation. So when wine is formed, or when yeast make bread dough rise, that is an anaerobic activity. The yeast are not in the presence of oxygen when bread dough is rising. So here's just a cute little diagram. We got you something. And then the heart is like, oh, I love it. I'm going to share that oxygen with everyone. Get it? Ha ha ha. All right, moving on. So glycolysis is the first process that begins to use energy. And it is in the cytoplasm. So if you remember the cytoplasm of a cell, it's kind of outside of the organelles. It's the material that holds everything inside a cell. And that's an anaerobic process. Glyco means glucose. Lysis means to cut. So glycolysis is happening where the glucose is being broken apart and it produces 2 ATP. So that's kind of important. We need that ATP. Move out of the way over here. Anaerobic in the cytoplasm. Sorry, I don't know why it won't go. Oh, wait, there it is over there. Okay. Sorry. So you have 2 ATP that are created in glycolysis, and you have some NADH, which is, if you don't remember, I always have to look because it's a really, really long word. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. Hydrogen. That's a lot. So you've got that being created also, and that is needed in the electron transport chain. So moving on, glucose is cut. Oh, I'm still in the way. Let me move myself out of the way here. Glucose is cut in the cytoplasm. And another way to put that is that it's broken down. I can't find a place to put my picture. There you go. Glucose is broken down in the cytoplasm by the process of glycolysis. And when it's broken down, it produces energy in the form of 2 ATP and 2 NADH. So there is a cycle that happens inside the mitochondria, another one, kind of like the Calvin cycle, that is very complicated. And we are not going to memorize all the parts of the Krebs cycle, sometimes called the citric acid cycle. But if you just know the Krebs cycle is working in the mitochondria to help with breaking down glucose, then that's good enough. Now that process needs oxygen. So you need oxygen and electron carriers, and then it produces 2 ATP. So also in this process, carbon dioxide is given off, and that's why we breathe out the carbon dioxide. Cellular respiration happening in the mitochondria. 2 ATP and 2 carbon dioxide. Now, we also have an electron transport chain in the mitochondria. We looked at the electron transport chain in the chloroplast, which is an organelle in the plants that animals don't have. We have our own electron transport chain in our mitochondria. And in that case, lots of ATP is formed. So the electron is moved between the proteins, just like it is in the chloroplast. And then you also have this enzyme, ATP synthase. It's in plants and animals, and it actually makes the ATP. So this is where most of our ATP is created, in this aerobic process. That means it has oxygen. And we get 34 to 36 ATP. So that is a very important process. So here's the electron transport chain. Get those hydrogens that are grabbed by the ATP synthase, and then they're given off along with adenosine diphosphate and an inorganic phosphate. That's what PI stands for, and ATP. Here's a video about cellular respiration. I don't think it will work. So far, I have not had any luck getting these videos to play while I was recording. So we're going to skip it, and I will leave a link for it actually on your agenda for today. So here we have a couple of examples of what happens when you have no oxygen present and energy is being created. So we have lactic acid. And what happens there is the bacteria that make yogurt or bread or red blood cells, they also make muscle cells when there's not enough oxygen, those burn. And then also, you can also produce alcohol. This is the process of fermentation, and it produces ethanol, ethyl alcohol, ethanol alcohol. Yeast, beer and wine, and bread are all produced by this process of fermentation. So glycolysis, which is anaerobic, glycolysis is also anaerobic. Sorry about that. The Krebs cycle is aerobic. So then you have fermentation. So the benefits of fermented food, there are enzymes there that help absorb the nutrients. So that's really good. It helps your body metabolize vitamins and supplements. Also, you have probiotics. These are good bacteria that help you with digestion, and they're good for immunity. Then also, most of the fermented foods have gone through a process where that lactic acid kills off any bad bacteria. So they're safer to consume. Also, the lacto fermentation process stores food, and that helps without depleting nutrients. It helps when you eat it, it helps your body to absorb the nutrients. And also, the actual fermentation process increases the nutritional value. So it's good to have fermented foods, and that is the end of the cellular respiration PowerPoint. So just to kind of wrap it up, let me come back over here. Here's what happens. You have the anaerobic cytoplasm, and that is where glycolysis takes place and breaks down sugar into ATP and NADH. Those things, ATP and NADH, are used in the aerobic, which is using oxygen, reaction inside the mitochondria called the Krebs cycle, also known as the citric acid cycle. Uses oxygen and electrons, and it produces more ATP and carbon dioxide, which comes out. Finally, after that, you move on to the electron transport chain, and that also happens in the mitochondria. That also is an aerobic process, and you end up with producing 34 to 36 ATP. So that's our main ATP producer, and water. So that is also produced in cellular respiration. And then if you don't have oxygen present, then you go through a process called fermentation. And in that case, you end up with these beneficial foods. So if you have any questions about cellular respiration, be sure to email me, and I will be glad to help you in any way that I can. And hopefully you were able to fill in the rest of the notes, and you can take pictures of that and turn it in, or you can do the whole thing electronically and submit it that way. So either way is fine. And we hope that you're doing well in quarantine, and we wish you were coming back soon because we miss you. So have a great day. See you later. Bye. Can't get this to work. Sorry. Come on. Well, I want to say goodbye, but it's doing something weird. Okay, there we go. Now, have a great day. Goodbye.